Hi people, hope you're all well. So this one's a bit different from my other videos. Yeah. Um, yeah, this one's a bit different from the other videos. It's quite personal, but I think it's nothing unusual. It's something that a lot of people can relate to. I think, especially in the modern world, and particularly in these pandemic times when communication by nature has had to somewhat change. Um, so I want to give my experience of online dating. Um, and I intend this to serve as a sort of, I guess you could say, heads up for people. Now, not everyone is going to have the same experience. So I'm not saying that what I have experienced is going to be exactly the same for everyone. Um, and I'm going to be a little bit diplomatic in this. I'm not going to name anyone or anything like that because that isn't the purpose. The purpose is to just give people something to consider before going to this approach. So a little bit of background. In the past, I'd never looked at online dating. I was always skeptical of it. I always felt that it wasn't reliable, it wasn't trustworthy. I didn't really have any basis for that. It was just my gut feeling. I just felt that you didn't really know who, or you wouldn't really know who you're talking to. That people who wouldn't be what they claim to be, and that was kind of my big concern. It was also financial because most dating sites kind of hook you in by making their services um, sort of they'll do this thing whereby you'll be able to sort of see profiles loosely, maybe some basic information, possibly a photo or two, or they might blur the photos, but that's it. And that's a bit pointless. You can't really do anything with that. So they then offer you a premium service. At least this is my experience with the site that I've been using, which is eHarmony. And I'll come to eHarmony in a minute, but most dating sites do something similar. I think some are better than others, but that financial aspect is also part of it. Now, eHarmony. Why did I choose eHarmony? And I should make a disclaimer here. I'm still on it, so I'm talking about an experience I've had, but this is something that I'm still subscribed to because I paid for a year's membership, and it's been about 5 months now. 5 months. Well, it's been quite a ride so far. Why eHarmony? Well, simply name recognition. There wasn't really any other reason. I didn't really do much homework. I didn't do reviews or anything like that because I was sort of prejudiced against all dating sites. I just thought, well, if I'm going to go for one, I may as well go for one of the well-known ones, and eHarmony is one of the best known. There's a few others, I think Match.com and a few others. But basically, yeah, eHarmony, you pay a subscription. I pay £100. So it was a small sum, but that's for a whole year. So from the point you pay to the calendar year from that date. With that cost, what you get is you get to send messages to members. You get to view profiles pretty much unlimited to your preferences. Obviously, there's a code of conduct. You can't just do what you want. There's like any sort of social networking tool, there's reporting mechanisms and so on. But I have to say that my overall impression of eHarmony is good so far, of the site I'm talking about. Not so much the principle of online dating, but the site, eHarmony. I've no major complaints. I can't say that as a site they have done anything dubious. They haven't misled me. They haven't, taken my money and then I can't use the services or anything like that. So far, I've no major complaints about the site. Although there is one thing on eHarmony which I do question, and that's their compatibility mechanism. So what they do is you'll put in the criteria that you're looking for. So the age group, obviously male or female. It mostly caters for heterosexual people, but I think there's an option you can also look for. Um, Men can look for men and women can look for women. Although I think they tend to be, probably I'd recommend to any LGBT people perhaps it's more practical to look at a specific site simply because it makes the choices easier, I would imagine. Whereas this way, most people will be straight. So I'm just thinking in practical terms. You choose the ages. You can choose the location, so within your country or beyond, and you can choose other details such as do they want children, do you want them to be a smoker or non-smoker, this sort of thing. Um, what it doesn't do is focus on looks, and I've kind of mixed views on that. In a sense, it's good because it's not shallow and it's focusing on personality and it's focusing on compatibility in other ways. However, physical attraction is absolutely part of dating, of attraction. It's part of it, and there's no escaping that fact. So that's something that I mean, I understand the difficulty there because it would be quite difficult to sort of say, well, I want someone who's exactly this sort of size and, this hair color and all the exact aesthetics that you want. You can actually choose ethnicity. Now, that might seem a little bit controversial, but again, there may be cultural issues there. There may be people who perhaps come from a more conservative culture where it's easier to get people from their own ethnicity. I don't know. Or maybe it's just people's preference. So that is an option as well. But that's how it works. You basically choose your criteria. You also answer questions about yourself. You don't have to, but I do because I want to be upfront with people. And yeah, that's it basically. Then they come up with these matches. Now, what I'm not so fussed on is the way they do the compatibility. So they sort of look at you are you've this in common or that in common, and you have this little number ratio. So the higher the number, the more supposedly you are compatible with that person. But in my experience, they've sometimes linked me up with someone, and there's a very high number, and I'm thinking, what do they see here? What do I have in common with this woman? Like, we don't have a similar background. She might be attractive enough, but I try to find what eHarmony has deemed that we are compatible in because sometimes members have very limited information. They might have very basic things, possibly their job, um, and sometimes really simplistic introduction. So I don't know how eHarmony sort of uses that criteria because to me, to have a real match, you'd need more information to know that people will match up. I guess I should say why did I start going to the site? I mean, I've explained the reservations I had it before, but basically I'm 36. I've been single for a while now, a few years, so I think it is the time in my life now to find someone. And with the pandemic, it really is hard to date in a conventional way, going to bars and so on. And to be honest, I've never liked that approach anyway. I've tried it a few times. I find it a little bit unreliable because a lot of bars you're basically shouting over each other to even be heard. It's just not. I just don't think it's a really great way to meet people. And the thing about dating site is everybody is there for the purpose of dating. So basically, what you see is what you get. Um, in insofar as people are there to try and find someone. Now, I'm going to talk about my specific experiences in a minute, but a few things I like and dislike about the way people approach that. And this is perhaps a heads up also if people are thinking about putting themselves on a dating site and they're maybe not sure about it. I'm talking here to, I feel there's a slightly different approach of men and women, and I'll come to that a little bit more. For women, I think maybe there's a bit more caution, rightly or wrongly. I mean, I don't really know why there should be any difference because both men and women can be misled. Both men and women can be have games played with them. Both men and women can be tricked. I suppose there's more of a physical issue for women. If it came to the point of meeting up, but yeah, I mean, I think that's a little bit. We're in the 21st century now. Some of the older conventions perhaps are a little bit archaic, and I think That's another thing I didn't like about dating sites. I think they were a little bit biased towards women. There's all these sort of things like, you can do this, but you can't do that. But then female members would be unlimited in what they could do. That's what I've seen in other dating sites. Not so much eHarmony. eHarmony is more of an equilibrium, I would say, in terms of, yeah, just the way they approach that. But there's a few things that when they match down the compatibility, when they break it down, there's a segment saying um, masculine, feminine side. And I wouldn't say I'm not Sylvester Stallone, I'm not Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I'm fairly alpha, and sometimes I don't really understand their. They'll say I've got more feminine side than the woman, and I'm thinking, really, what's the logic for that? So yeah, there's a few practical things like that I'm not fussed on. Now, this is a slightly personal bit, my own experience. Basically, I knew what I was looking for. I had a certain I had a certain aesthetic in my mind. I mean, I'm realistic. I don't just go for supermodels. Look at me. I'm pretty average. Um, I want to be attracted to the person. And of course, I look at their age. So relatively close to me. I go for a little bit younger, but relatively close. Um, I'm 36, so late 20s to 35 is my sort of target. Um, Background, I don't care that much what sort of job she does, but sometimes, it's surface value, those introductions. But sometimes a red flag to me is someone who seems very self-absorbed. So if you're talking about what you want and what you're looking for, it's okay, that's important. But I think it's also important not to give the impression that you are self-obsessed, that you are thinking, well, I want this, but what will you offer in return? Or not even like, okay, I'll give him this in return, but just don't sound self-absorbed. Some women on eHarmony, and I'm sure some men as well. I mean, I can only see the women. I don't know the other guys that are there, so I can't speak for them. But I'm sure it's the same thing. It'll be like, if you want me, you need to do this, and there's all these sort of criteria, and I'm thinking, um, okay, that's good for you, but yeah, you know, it's a two-way street. Trust is a two-way street. So my own experience, well, basically, I was looking for people, and they match you up, and I messaged some people. Some of them replied, some of them didn't. Most of the time, it was kind of a very short conversation, a little bit back and forth. And there wasn't much to it. And I realized, okay, the only way this is going to work if want a long-term partner is to have a video chat. Now, eHarmony actually has a video service of its own, but the technology is not wonderful. It can be a little bit slow. For example, when you send messages, it takes them a few seconds to appear, so you can sort of be talking over each other inadvertently. Um, so a lot of people on eHarmony, they give other details of social media. They give their Instagram details, sometimes Facebook. I think eHarmony is a bit funny about this. I don't like the idea of other websites being quoted because I tried to do that and they said this edit has not been approved. So I was like, okay. But people do that just as another mechanism to talk to people, I think. For me, there's something that I think is very important, which is if a relationship is to be furthered, if a relationship is to advance, I have to have a sort of communication. I need to speak to the person. So I would always suggest that if I liked her, if I thought she was maybe interesting, attractive, I would say, well, look, do you want to speak on Skype if you have free time? No commitment, just talking. And I've done that with a few people. And sometimes I think it was about two or three people. And one girl sort of changed her profile information the night before, which got me a little bit wary. And then I found out she was quite an evangelical Christian. I'm kind of middle ground with religion. It didn't put me off, but I then understood why she never got back to me because obviously I didn't match up to her religious standards, which is fine. But that's the point of talking, to know these things. And I don't know how anyone could meet someone in long distance dating without having had significant communication first, which to me means a video call. Writing is fine, but it really doesn't compensate for a face-to-face talk. It just doesn't. Ideally, you'd be meeting someone in a coffee shop, but with online dating, practically a video chat is the thing. And actually, I'd recommend it because it's safe. If the person turns out to be a creep or a weirdo or a strange person, it's only a video. You can turn the video off. You don't need to speak to them again. Um, in other situations, it could get a bit like strange, whereby that's why actually I think online dating, we hear negative things about it sometimes. I actually think it could be safer because you can get information and details about someone before you meet them. Whereas, let's say you meet someone in a bar and you sort of say, okay, do you want to meet for a coffee next Tuesday? Um, they could stand you up. They could do lots of things. I think with online dating, if someone messes you around, the impact is less, generally speaking. It's irritating and it's disrespectful, but at least you haven't wasted time and money going to meet up with them. However, I have to be honest, I've had a difficult experience with one member, and I'm going to respect her privacy. I'm not going to name her or anything like that. I'm not even going to give her background because if she happens to come across this, I don't want her to think that I'm talking about her in that sense. I'm going to talk about the experience, but I won't be so specific about her. Well, I'm not going to name her. But I'm going to talk about the experience. So basically, well, I can't believe how much things have turned around. To go from really feeling hope and feeling something was working out to pretty much nothing now. So that's hard. And this is something I want to caution people about on this sort of dating because this is the other side of it. I mentioned traditional dating has its risks, but I think online dating has risks as well. Most people will say trust is the number one thing. So, in my experience, basically, we done a bit of video messaging. We were getting on well. We then agreed to go to emails where we could talk more in depth because emails we could write without interruptions, like it wasn't that lapse thing I mentioned before. And we done that. We exchanged emails in depth. Then I went to video. We went to Skype. And basically, we got into a routine where we were speaking every Saturday. And we shared everything. Everything. I completely opened up to her. I yeah, I shared everything, my life, pretty much. Um, and this was strange because it was a relatively short time, probably a month and a half altogether, roughly speaking. And that is the hardest part about what has now transpired because this wasn't a case of a bit of flirting and maybe something to work out. I really, really believed that it would. I accept the situation now, but I really believed that it would work out. And basically, the difficulty with online dating, and maybe it was just I was unfortunate to find someone who had a certain approach that, in my view, did not help matters. It certainly didn't help me get over the situation. Um, because for me, communication is such an important thing. Now, basically, she ended it, but she offered that we still stay friends, and that's always risky because if you fall for someone, and I did fall for her in a big way, and then it suddenly changes, it takes time to get over. I mean, you have to respect the other person's wishes. You can't force them, because then it gets into um, dubious territory where you're, almost harassing someone. And I know, obviously, didn't want to go down that path, but I also didn't want to just give up and just say, well, we had this situation where we were getting extremely close. We planned to meet in New York City. She's not American, she's from another country, but suffice to say that was roughly a halfway point. Now we were going to meet there. You can imagine this. You're having a really amicable, warm, in-depth conversation. You just connect with someone Okay, you haven't known them long, but it's just connecting. And I'd always been skeptical of that. I'd always say, "Oh well, you haven't known this person, you've never directly met them. How can you trust it?" And the truth is, I was naive to the power that sort of online dating can create. That sort of dynamic whereby you're getting closer and closer to someone, and you really start trusting it, and you really start thinking, "Well, this is right." Now, I don't think I'm naive. I asked questions. I made sure she was who she said she was, because I double checked on different sources. We were connected on social media as well. And I checked that she was who she said she was. We even shared red flags with each other. That is to say, anything in our lives that we should know about. She opened up, I opened up. Um, and so things were really going well. There was a real trust factor there, at least I thought there was. Now, in mid-September, she suddenly took a different direction, and she said that she no longer felt we were compatible. She felt we were moving at a different pace, and I didn't really understand what she meant by that. Um, and she basically felt that I would get hurt further down the line, so she wanted to end it. And that was devastating. It was devastating, and I've no hesitation saying it was one of the most painful situations of my life. And it's just topping off what's been a pretty difficult year for me. But I thought, well, I'll try this friendship route. But even then, she said, well, I talk to my friends every few months, and I thought, this is getting impossible. It's getting impossible because there's no way I can even try to move on so long as she is connected in my life. We were still connected on social media. So I said goodbye to her. Um, and that was it pretty much. I thought, well, this is not goodbye forever. And I mentioned that. I said, this is a temporary thing, or at least I have to do this because this is the only way I can move on. And I maybe made a mistake because I actually contacted her again. I'd actually disconnected from her and I contacted her after about a month. And she didn't take well to this at all. And so that was really, I was thinking, well, I wanted a bit of a break, but maybe I could do this. Maybe we could be friends. And she took it the wrong way, basically. Well, she took it whatever way she took it, but um, she wasn't happy. Maybe she thought I was playing games. Maybe she thought whatever. And maybe some people would criticize me for that, but you have to understand when you're in this situation, most people will not give up easily if they think. I don't mean like trying to get the person to change their mind, but having a connection. And the thing that had sort of motivated me was that she said the door wasn't totally closed. Now, had she said at one point, "Look, this is never going to work. Goodbye. Don't. It's never going to work. So give up any hope." I would have done that, but the difficulty is when someone leaves the door open, even if it's a small bit, then you do have hope. If you have feelings for them, you have hope. I'm the sort of guy, I know boundaries. I would never ever push it too far. I would never get into the realm of harassing someone, for example. Obviously, I don't even need to say that. So that's I want nothing more to do with her because I can't process the how much she has changed. I can't process it. And this brings me to a point where you need to be very careful on this sort of situation. It's vital to ask questions. It's vital to know what are your red lines. What are you looking for? And what do you not want to happen? This is difficult because you don't want to come across as too demanding or too sort of like this person is, yeah, too sensitive or too Like, I mean, I had one girl I was talking to a while back, and she sort of said, I said, do you want to do a video talk? And she said, well, no sex talk. And I said, yeah, of course. I'm a serious guy. I'm not interested in that. And, I've vindicated that because we had a serious talk. But she was just a bit rude the whole way. She was a bit too outspoken and just a bit too blunt. And I said, look, good luck, but I don't think we're matched. Um, so you need to know what you want, and you need to have the courage to tell the other person that, but do it in a polite way, do it in a diplomatic way. Just say, look, this is what I'm looking for, and do you feel the same way? I think that's the way to do it. If you're rude, it's going to put people off. But also, if you're too quiet, if you're too reserved, then they're going to be constantly trying to work out what you're thinking. I mean, they're going to be constantly, well, like from my perspective, if I'm talking to a girl who's very quiet, um, I'll be thinking, well, what's she thinking? Does she like me? Does she not like me? I mean, I need some communication. For me, it's the number one thing, actually, above anything else. Um, and when something ends, it ends. So that's the situation I mentioned. It's just, I don't want that anymore. I don't want the complications of that. I don't regret that I didn't sort of, when she rejected me, I didn't take the view. Some people would be like, okay, she's rejecting me, that's it, goodbye. I was quite open to the idea of being friends. I thought I could try it, but it just proved too difficult. Um, and I think she misunderstood me in a number of things. And this went from, she was praising me and she was admiring me, and then she just started misinterpreting my life in some ways. It actually got quite, I don't want to say unpleasant. We didn't really have any heated rows or anything like that, but it just I realized actually this is the great risk. You fall for someone, but then you have to accept reality. It's not compatible, and you could tell yourself it is, it is, it is. So you could get, hopefully that person will change their mind or whatever. But in the end of the day, there has to be a point where you accept reality, and I think friendship from dating is not easy. I'm not saying it's impossible. I think there are people who are friends with their ex girlfriends, ex boyfriends. I don't really agree with this view. It can never happen. I think if you get to a point where you're no longer in love with them, or at least you're no longer desiring them in that sense, then it's quite healthy. But if you still have feelings for that person, it's almost impossible to be in the friend zone. Almost impossible, because you're going crazy because they maybe don't feel the same way you do, and it's like mental torture. And I have found the last few months some of the hardest of my life, really. Um, so what I would say about this sort of situation is be aware that something that seems really good. Um, I don't want to say go in and be cynical. Enjoy it. It's good. Enjoy it. Enjoy talking to people. Enjoy getting to know people. Um, learning about different cultures if you're talking to someone from another country. But be aware that it's so easy for people to turn away when it's online. And they might seem like a really nice person. They might seem trustworthy, and you might put a lot of trust into them. But unfortunately, I don't think it could ever be 100%. I really, really believed we were compatible. I really, really believed that there was trust there. And I don't think I'm a foolish person. I don't think I'm a naive person. Because she opened up as well. This wasn't one-sided. She was putting risk into that as well. She was opening up. We would speak for hours. And for all of this to just fall flat, it was damn difficult. One of the hardest experiences of my life, without question. And it's something I hope I never go through again. That fallout, that period of trying to move on, being unable to, and now it's I know that there is. no practical purpose in trying to hope for anything because it's never going to happen. And I think you have to get to a point where you are hard with the reality. You just say the hope is futile. So even if it seems like 20% hope, this what I would say is if someone says, the door is not entirely closed, I would take that to be it's closed because they might just be trying to be polite or they might not. I mean, it's not easy to reject someone either, so they might be trying to lessen the responsibility of having to reject someone. But that's another thing I do. I don't mislead people. If I'm not interested, I will tell them politely. I will not waste their time. And what I would say is, if you're only passively interested in someone, you need to be upfront about it. I don't mean say, oh well, I'm not really interested in you, but for God's sake, don't give them false hope. And the way to do that is not to make grand promises or grand plans, such as meeting up somewhere or profound life decisions like marriage or children. Don't, I mean, it's okay to talk about those things, but I always put the caveat now because I'm talking to other people. I'm trying to move on. I want to find the right lady, but I am telling them, I'm being upfront about it. I'm saying, look, I might need to take this slowly because I'm coming out of this situation. Now, I've paid for the service. I don't want to just, drop it. I paid for the service and I want to find someone, and I believe I still can. Because people are individuals, people are different, and you can't judge a bad experience and say everyone's going to be the same. But if I could sort of pass on one piece of I don't want to say advice, but experience, it would just be aware that something that can seem very good is never 100% guaranteed. You might be talking to someone, and he or she may seem like a great person, and you may be really clicking, and then something goes on in their life. Maybe they just find something in your personality or whatever that they just don't like. And you could try to talk about it, you could try to work that out, and it might work. In my case, it didn't, unfortunately. I felt I was doing the right thing by trying to communicate and trying to listen to her concerns, but she just didn't want to. By her own admission, she said that her way of dealing with things in a relationship is to back off, but she still wanted to be friends. Um, so that was very hard. Um, and I would just say be careful. Physically, yeah. I mean, obviously, if you're meeting up with someone, make sure it's a public place. Make sure that you don't need to go into full details with relatives or friends, but maybe give them some broad information, and definitely make it a public place. And also do your homework. If you meet someone on a dating site, it's not a bad idea to connect on social media or at least see what their social media profiles are. If they've got a different name or a different picture that looks nothing like them, then that's obviously a red flag. Obviously, be careful about people asking for money. I just that would be a complete base zero for me. Any woman that asked me for money, I'd be goodbye, no way. Um, and I would suggest to any women out there, obviously, he might seem like a really charming guy, but if he asks for money, um, just you need to you need to harden your heart sometimes. That's the truth, and it isn't easy because everyone wants that feeling of falling for someone. Everyone wants that excitement. They want that compatibility. But believe me, it's one of the worst experiences to have something that seems so good, and then it goes to absolutely, you know. I mean, in my life, whenever I've broken up with someone, it's always been very amicable. It's always been like the circumstances kind of was the situation. I mean, it was, and we wish each other all the best. And that kind of happened this time at first, but I think I think what was happening with this person is she had something going on in her own life. She told me a little bit about it, but I underestimated it. I think I underestimated how much of an impact that perhaps was having on her, and I think she projected it on me. So she read into my trying to communicate as something it wasn't. That was hurtful. but it's also, you know, I certainly don't want to be falsely accused of something. So I know what my intentions are. I know what my approach has been, but that's it. I don't want, I don't want that sort of dynamic. It's too risky. Just too damn risky. Because you try to do the right thing. You try to um, make things work. Sometimes it can make things worse. Now, in retrospect, maybe I tried too hard. It's not like I wasn't bombarding with messages or something like that. That was absolutely not the situation, in case anyone's thinking that. But I thought maybe we could try the friendship thing, and I realized she wasn't even going to be okay with that. So if you're on a dating site, for me, there's some base things. I mean, if someone's rude, if I message them and they see it and they don't bother getting back to me, I say, well, she's just rude. What's if they can't even be bothered to communicate, then that's going to not happen. If they do communicate, ask the questions you want to ask, but don't be too forceful. And I really, really, really recommend a video chat. Now, I'm not saying that will, I obviously had that and it still worked out the way it did. I'm talking to other people now, and they know the situation. Um, but at least I'm free now. At least I can move on, and I know where I lie with her. So good luck anyone who's using this situation, using a dating site. Maybe you've had an experience, but that's my experience. Be careful. Don't allow excitement or hope to build into letting your guard down. Be aware that even when things feel so good, even when you've opened up, even then, person could suddenly change. And that is one of the hardest things. It really is. Because it is very hard to predict that. It is. But if you have a healthy level of skepticism, I don't mean 50-50. I mean, be hopeful, enjoy it. But I would say until you meet that person directly, it can never be 100% guaranteed. You see these videos of people meeting in airports and it works out for them. Well, ostensibly it does because they've met, they haven't misled each other. My big fear was always going to an airport and she just doesn't bother showing up. Um, because there's people who do that. There's incredibly selfish people in this world who would do that. I think it's a shitty thing to do to someone. And any woman that done that to me, I would consider her to be completely beyond the pale. And I would never do it to someone, suffice to say. So I think it's good to just be assertive, be a little bit hard headed. Don't let your sentiments get ahead of you and just be assertive. It's all you could do. People are different. I think if you're assertive, you at least have a degree of control there and protection. Good luck, everyone.